Good evening, everyone. My name is Eliza Penfield, and I am a member of the Highlands UMC Youth Group here. I'm happy to welcome you here. At Highlands United Methodist, everyone is welcome. For the safety of yourself and others, we ask that you wear a mask. If you don't have one, you can find extra in the back of the sanctuary. If you need to use the restroom, you can go out this door, down the hallway, and past the bookcase, and there are restrooms right there. This event is being live streamed, and there will be a recording available online afterwards. We are delighted to host this event this evening with YouthServe. I would now like to turn this over to Jennifer Hatchett, the Director of YouthServe.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I want to echo Eliza's statement and say we're just so happy to see all of you here. Glad none of you are sick. It's a crazy, crazy time in our world right now. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to be here and to discuss such important issues. For those of you who don't know about YouthServe, is there anybody that doesn't know? I know. Not everyone knows who we are. But for those of you who don't know, we are a small community-based nonprofit that has been in existence for a little over 20 years. Our vision is to create a stronger city with informed citizens who know the value of diversity and innovation, who can work effectively together for positive change. And our mission is basically to achieve that vision through empowering diverse youth leadership, through civic engagement, service, and philanthropy. We accomplish that mission through providing the space, resources, and guidance for youth to participate in discussion and action around community issues, including hosting events like this one, which is designed to bring experts in issues to our young people and to educate them on challenges that we are facing. So, and speaking of, it's time to get this show started, if you will. And I'm going to introduce our moderator, which we had a change. Unfortunately, my dear friend, Beth Shelburne, who has a huge impact on how all of this ball started rolling, and they will tell you that story shortly. But she was just exposed to COVID and unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. So we're very sad that she will not be here, but we know that the story is going to be just as lovely tonight for you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce first Carla Crowder. She is the executive director of Alabama Appleseed and basically brings 3 decades of experience both as a journalist and attorney in public policy research, advocacy, and litigation on behalf of marginalized and vulnerable communities. She has been a journalist covering the criminal justice system and worked at newspapers in 3 states, most recently the Birmingham News. She was twice nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, which not surprised at all. And she realized at some point she couldn't be an unbiased reporter about a system so broken and harmful as the one in Alabama. In 2019, she earned her JD from the University of Alabama School of Law, and with a certificate in public interest law. Carla joined the Equal Justice Initiative, and those of you who don't know what that is, if you know Just Mercy and Brian Stevenson, that is the Equal Justice Initiative. She was a staff attorney there where she represented clients sentenced to life without parole as children, people on death row, and she worked on cases, on the cases of Anthony Ray Hinton and Benaiah Dandridge, 2 wrongfully convicted Alabama men. She also worked on federal litigation over unconstitutional violence in Alabama's prison. And in 2016, she joined the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham as Program and Policy Director, leading the organization's effort to create economic security for low-income women. So she's really done just about everything and all for wonderful results. She joined Alabama Appleseed in 2019 and directs the organization's policy agenda, and it's centered at the intersection of poverty and the criminal justice system. And before I mince any of the rest of her biography that is way too small for me to read with my very old eyes, I'm going to let her continue her own story and that of Ron McKeithen, who is going to share a little bit of his experience with you tonight. And without further ado, Carla, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer and YouthServe. Just so impressed with the work that YouthServe does. Our small nonprofits are making a big difference in the community. Thank you all for being here tonight, for caring about justice in your community and learning how you can make a difference. One quick correction to the bio. Graduated from law school in 2009, so I haven't done all this in just 2 years. It's been a little longer than that. So I want to share a little bit about Appleseed and then turn it primarily over to Ron and Alex. But I want to start by thinking about a theme that I think is important that runs through this story. And that's the theme of taking risk, of taking chances, of following the road less traveled. I have done that throughout my career. Beth Shelburne has done that. Ronald did that throughout 37 years of incarceration. And I think it's important for young people to know that you can take chances, that you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. And sometimes taking those big risks is how you get the most rewarding results. So just keep that in mind throughout the evening. At Appleseed, where I've been executive director since 2019, we started out about 20 years ago as a very small public policy nonprofit. We did research, we worked on legislation, we built coalitions, 3 or 4 people toiling away in Montgomery trying to change bad systems in Alabama. Often we got attorneys to help, pro bono support from law firms, but the idea was big systems change, so fix bad laws. It wasn't direct representation of individuals. That's a different kind of work, and that's a different kind of mission. And it's incredibly important, but it's hard to do both. And so we chose the public policy systems change work. And that's where Appleseed was when I took the job of executive director. We were working on issues like economic justice, the horrific burden of fines and fees on low-income people, drug policy. We did some marijuana research. We were trying to address over-sentencing and over-incarceration through policy change. And we met with attorneys, other lawyers, impacted people. And one of the judges that we met with is a judge over in Bessemer. His name's David Carpenter. Really good guy. We were talking to him about our fines and fees work. Well, a couple months later, he calls me. I don't even have an office yet. I'm working out of my basement. And he calls and says, I've got a petition from a man who's been in Donaldson for 36 years, Donaldson prison, 36 years for a $50 robbery. You know, I looked up his case. I thought, this must be capital murder. 36 years, he's 58 years old, he's in the honor dorm. I really want to help this man. And he knew I'd done this kind of work at EJI a little bit, but we didn't do this kind of work at Appleseed. And I was a new executive director, and I was nervous about my job and making my board happy, but I also didn't want to say no to a judge. So I said, I think I can help. We needed a legal strategy and a legal argument to get this man back into court. And it's no easy thing, because once someone is convicted and sentenced, the door slams shut, and it is so hard to fix that. Basically, you have a couple years to make arguments, and then it's game over. But long story short, we got back into court. I was going to try to keep it quiet, but Beth Shelburne showed up, and several journalists, because the judge wanted them there, and we were able to free that wonderful man named Alvin Kennard. And this was a wake-up call to me after a decade as a lawyer that there are still so many people thrown away in our prisons, and how could I say no if there were judges and prosecutors and reentry organizations willing to take another look and open those doors. So we decided we were going to do this at Appleseed because nobody else in the state was doing it. Amazingly, we got some funding from the National Football League. I can't even explain how that happened, but we did. And the rest is history. But it was only through these sort of magical, miraculous interventions that we even came into this work. It was not inevitable. But when you hear Ron's story, when you hear Alex talk about her work, you will think, of course this needed to happen. How could this not happen? There was so much injustice. So I will turn it over to these folks. First, I want to introduce Alex Legank, because she has been an absolutely integral part of this story. Alex was barely out of law school, had not even passed the bar, when I decided I need help with these cases, and she is smart and aggressive and feisty, and I hired Alex in May of 2020, and she has been kind of the heart and soul of putting together petitions, helping with reentry, and just an example of what you can do your first year out of law school. So Alex?
Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here. So yeah, like Carla said, my name is Alex. I wasn't supposed to be here originally, and I'm sad that Beth's not being here is why I'm here. We love you, Beth. But yeah, so I had the pleasure of working on Ron's petition that ultimately got him out of prison. And I did that I started working on that about 5 months out of law school, like Carla said, and that's not normal. So for those of you out there, kids who are wanting to go to law school, usually it takes a lot of years to get to do, the really important, the really good stuff. So that's why I'm really grateful I met Carla. When I was in law school, I knew I wanted to do public interest work, which is, generally just a community service type law. And I met Carla. We were in the same circles and ended up offering to volunteer for Alabama Appleseed. I was given a project revolving around Alabama's prison conditions. And about that same time is when Carla got the call from Judge Carpenter out of Bessemer. So timing was just on my side in here. So yeah, I graduated less than a year later and had a job with Alabama Appleseed thanks to Carla and the NFL. So that's how I got here.
So after Mr. Kennard's release, the second person that we had to look into, because so many people in this community knew about Ron McKeithen and the injustice of his case. And so I want to let Ron introduce himself and start telling that story.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ronald McKeithen. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. And I regret Beth is not here. Great replacement. But it would have been really fitting if she was, because she's the one that really started this path to my freedom. I'm so happy to meet her mother, who was sitting in the audience. I was convicted of first-degree robbery in '84. I was one of thousands that were convicted under the Habitual Offenders Act and sentenced to life without parole. I was sentenced first-degree robbery, my 3 priors, 2 credit cards, and a burglary. I was born in poverty. My mother was an alcoholic, father nowhere around, for real. And that left me with free reign to just explore with other guys that were in poverty. And so just a number of us just getting in trouble. Before I knew it, I think within 2 or 3 years, I had gathered those felonies. I got on drugs because I was dealing with a lot of pressure with dealing with a mother that was on alcohol and having young siblings, having to be there and take care of them. I got kicked out of school because I spent more time there taking care of the kids. So I ended up wandering in the streets a lot. But the 37 years in prison I spent was no joke. Some people ask me, well, how can I still smile and all of that? I don't have no choice but to smile, because I could have died in there. Really, I expected to die in there. When these people came into my life, I didn't even believe it, because I tried so many times to file and get somebody to notice me, to realize that, hey, I don't deserve it. I'm not that bad a guy. And when they called me and talked to me, that was the first time I talked to a lawyer since my sentencing, 37 years. And that's unheard of for a guy to be in prison and hadn't murdered anybody, raped, did anything just so crazy to deserve that type of sentence, to go so long and not even get a lawyer to like even call or talk to me. I didn't have the money and didn't have the connections. And the things I filed pro se, they didn't pay no attention to because so many people was filing and begging to get out of prison. So if you don't have a lawyer filing for you, it's mostly a waste of time. But now they've noticed me, and for some reason they've noticed certain things about me, and they hired me to work with them to help other guys. My title is Reentry Coordinator. And what I do is I do the same thing for these guys, what they've done for me. I know what they've been through, and I know what they got to go through. And what's so beautiful about it, all the guys that they've freed, I knew all of them. We've slept in the same dorms, I've been together for decades. And so for me to be at that gate, or to be the one to like work with them, oh man, that's like a double pleasure. Because, I mean, the embrace is like, they know they're coming to me now. They know that I'm the guy they're gonna be with. And that's like, it feels good to be able to drive around in a car with 3 guys that I've served time with. That I mean, it's like being in like Walt Disney's thing, you know, how happy people are. It's, I'm living the dream right now. But my main purpose now is to try to just do all I can for guys that get out of prison, what was done for me.
So Ron referenced some of our other guys, and it's funny, we do refer to our clients as our guys. That may not be quite professional.
Yeah.
So I just want to share a little bit about how these cases have happened and why we still need more reforms before Ron shares a little bit more of his story. The state of Alabama did some sentencing reform a few years back. So people in Ron's situation, if they're sentenced today, have access to a much shorter sentence. He was given mandatory life without parole. A judge today would have an option to sentence him to about a 20-year sentence with 5 to serve and the rest on probation. So he would have gotten out while he was still in his 20s if he was sentenced today. Well, clearly that's not fair. Those sentencing reforms that have helped people going forward were not retroactive, which means the guys who are oldest, who have done the most time, are stuck. They're stuck in prison. And judges, and even here in Jefferson County and a couple of other counties, the district attorneys, the prosecutors, whose job it is to get sentences, are recognizing this just isn't fair, especially because our prisons are overcrowded and unconstitutional. These men have been living in honor dorms. They're completely rehabilitated. And so we're able to work closely with individual district attorneys on a few cases. And if they agree not to oppose the petitions, then we've been able to get people resentenced. And so far, we've been able to win or get resentencing and releases for 6 total clients. So after Ron was released, we took on 4 more cases in 2021 and quickly got 4 more men out. Another one of our clients is here today, Michael Schumacher. You want to raise your hand, Michael? And he has been out since April and is just doing wonderful things and is a joy to be with. The problem is we need reform at the state level. We need those good laws, good sentencing options to be retroactive, or we need repeal of the Habitual Felony Offender Act. There's a number of ways we could accomplish this. Because unless you have the perfect set of circumstances, the right district attorney, the right county, just sort of this formula, then a lot of these older men who are completely rehabilitated are just going to be stuck in DOC, unfortunately. So we are continuing to work for more systemic reform. But along the way, we're able to do this individual work. And as Ron mentioned, he now works for us. And that wasn't part of the plan either. We just started spending time with him and working with other clients and realizing he had the best insight to communicate with people just getting out about what it's going to be like and about how, yeah, this is going to be hard, but it gets better. And no, don't go this route because, you know, that's not going to be a good choice. But I would love for, before we get into some of the reentry talk, one of the most powerful things that Ron has shared with me over and over again, and he keeps talking about, is that he claims he's not special. We think he's special, but he claims that, and he shares and he knows that there are hundreds, thousands more people incarcerated that deserve a second chance as well. So I'd love for him to just share a little bit about what he and the community of incarcerated men were able to create inside some of Alabama's really horrific prisons, despite those poor, poor conditions.
You're right. It kind of amazes me when people be surprised at certain things that I'm doing. And I'll be like, you know, it's what I was doing in prison. It's as if society is not aware of what we're actually doing in prison. The media will give you the horror story. They'll give you this background on this person, how he might have murdered this person, raped that person. But everybody in prison is not in there for murder or rape or assault. A lot of people in there for crimes that they just made a simple mistake. And there are so many guys that are so much smarter than me, can talk very eloquently. I mean, just that I wish some of them were here. I wish you could hear their story. I wish you could hear them express how they feel, because me, I'm just an ordinary guy. There's nothing special about me. I left so many guys in that prison that are so talented. I mean, just, real talented. And I'm just here trying to represent them. Because if you can see me and think that I'm this good guy that's rehabilitated, that doing all these wonderful things with art, talking to people, you ain't seen nothing yet. There's some guys in there that can really amaze you on how smart they are. And not saying they went in that way, but when you've been in prison 2, 3, 5 decades, you get an opportunity to reevaluate yourself, reinvent yourself. You get an opportunity to just analyze each mistake and understand which part you played in it. And when you understand the part you played, the mistake then becomes a lesson. And I had to learn a whole lot of different lessons. I had to analyze myself in my sleep. I would wake up, just, things just, and when I realized that I was talented, that I loved art, that I love creating things with my hand, that I love helping people, that I love sharing things that's going to help a person, I realized that, man, I got a lot of talents. I got angry. I really got angry because first I got angry at the state for not noticing me and leaving me in here so long. And then I got angry at myself because I can't blame them. I'm the reason I'm in there. Even though there were snares everywhere in my neighborhood, deliberately set for me to step in. But I chose to step in it. I can't blame anybody. I chose to step in that snare. But I could have walked around like so many other people did and have been successful. While in prison, boredom can kill you. Boredom will make you want to cut your throat. I'm serious. The same thing every day when officers hollering at you, other guys looking crazy at you, maybe want to do strange things to you. You have to go through this every time. It's like it can, I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of people are killing themselves in prison. And if you read that DOJ report, you read that, you'll see how they tried to cover up a lot of it. But people are killing themselves in prison because they're just tired of the same thing. And they know that they've changed. They know that they're not this horrible person. I surrounded myself around people that wanted to change, people that weren't caught up in the bull inside of prison. UAB lecture series. I think that was the first thing I really got involved in. But I used to tutor a lot first. I started tutoring. For some reason, even in high school, elementary school, I just loved math. I'm not great at it, but I just love teaching math. And so I would always sign up to be a tutor. So I've been a tutor at a couple of institutions. And that's what I really started off doing, helping guys. But then when I got to Donaldson in 91, I got involved in different classes. I got in this honor dorm where I was around a lot of guys that just like me loved to go into class. The UAB lecture series, the Alabama Art Project with Kais, Stephen Kais. And I noticed that in all of these classes, I would see some of the same guys because they don't allow about 25 in the class. Sometimes they may have 2 classes that be fit to get to go. And a lot of guys that sign up won't get to go or finish because some officer made them mad talking crazy on them trying to get to the class. But I started surrounding myself around guys that just like learning and discussing constructive things. If there was a class that they didn't have or they stopped class, we would create a class. I remember once our Sonny Jennings, he come to me one day, hey man, you ever thought about a debate class? I said, yeah, that's good, want to do it? He said, well, I said, cool, so how are we going to do it? He said, man, I saw the book in the library. Go get it. We got the book, we started a debate class. And it got so good to us that the institution wanted to make it a part of their curriculum. And started just, and it got to the point where we was finna debate against a college. I mean, like, oh man, it was exciting, but I'm going back now. But you gotta understand that if you don't feed your mind, my motto was, I didn't have the luxury of being unproductive. Because when I found myself getting unproductive, getting to the point where I look at TV too much, I started to notice that I'm slowly dying like the rest of the guys behind me, around me. They're just regularly looking at TV, playing dominoes, reading, because no one there is really encouraging them or forcing them to take these advantages of things that's coming. And I'm not going to say there wasn't no opportunities for growth and education in prison, but yet it wasn't enough. And that they had, they wasn't encouraging guys or letting them know the benefit of going. And now if they tell you, like, if you get this class, you might make parole. But at the same time, they're seeing other guys that's doing all these classes and not making parole. Right now, I don't know how long it's been going on, but the parole board has been turning guys down for parole and sending them off 5 years. And to show you how crazy it is, there's a guy by the name of Jimmy Click. He spent 32 years in prison, not one disciplinary. The longest I know, he always worked in the chapel. I mean, that's all he did, worked in the chapel. He came up for parole. They turned him down and set him off 5 years. And just lucky that his mind kind of together. But a lot of guys, they're doing that too. They just give up. They say, "Why?" I mean, it's one guy that's going to get out in 2 years, set him off 5 years. I mean, she can explain how crazy it is. But what I want to, the main thing I want you to know and understand is that forget 60% of what you heard about prison. All right? That is not true. And the guys that are in prison that say that are trying to change and do better, it's hard because they're allowing so much chaos to go around. When I left prison, I was living in an underdorm, but they call it the blacktop. They're so short of officers, and so many officers are quitting. Not just here, I mean, a lot of officers are quitting because they just tired of working at the place. But in each dorm, it's 4 dorms, another 2 dorms on the other end. Each dorm holds 126 guys. And so on that blacktop, you got nearly 600-700 guys. You may have 3 officers on that whole strip at the cube. I mean, in this little shack. In the cube, there's no officer in the cube that's supposed to look down on you to make sure nobody gets in trouble. And then they started locking the door. So in other words, if a guy gets in a fight or somebody stabbing or whatever, you got to run to protect for your life and hope somebody hit the window and call the officer that's way down there. And by the time the officer get there, you probably stabbed up dead and probably laying at the door. And the officer got to open the door. I mean, it's crazy there. And guys, like, it's chaotic. And when you hear guys like fighting and protecting themselves, a lot of times they got to protect themselves. Guys may have to tote knives just to keep somebody from stabbing them. It's an environment that the system has let run rapidly wild. And in other dorms, that's a place where you have other dorms where guys like, hey, we ain't gonna be about that. We about trying to get ourselves, trying to educate ourselves. And so we are late. You're not coming in here with that. We have to really just have to protect ourselves, like don't come here with this foolishness because we're about growth. But right now, by there not being but 2 or 3 officers on that blacktop, that's gonna be, it's hard. Guys, a guy was just telling me how a guy officer just walked past a guy that was beat up, but I don't want to stick on the horror stories. But the things I did in prison prepared me for what I'm doing now, all right? I enjoyed, when I first got out, I hooked up with OAA.
That's the
Offenders Alumni Association. And Dina Dickinson, she's also an ex-felon, had been in prison, had started this organization. And she was one of the first persons that really like put me on her wing because she kind of knew certain things that they didn't know about coming from prison. And I think one of the first things she had me doing was going with her, giving away food. Just going to different places, giving away food, and I love that. And that's some of the same things we do in prison. But she started taking me like the DRC center, where I go and talk to parolees. She started taking me to schools, talking to kids. And it came so natural that it was the same thing I was doing in prison. And because of it, she started taking me to other places. Next thing I knew, when connecting with them, next thing I knew, I'm talking to UAB, different colleges, art exhibits with my art. My life is moving at such a beautiful pace that I don't want you to be so much surprised about it, because others can come out and do the same thing I'm doing. They just need that opportunity to come out. And what I'm doing now is not being just a role model for them, but I'm trying to show society that, hey, I'm not the only one. It's thousands still in there. They just need help. And if it weren't for this organization here, these 6 guys that just got out, well, including me, we probably died in there, because this was our only avenue out. This is the only crack that it came up. Because like I say, 37 years, this is the first lawyers I ever talked to. Oh man, and even if they hadn't gotten out, even if things had went wrong, I just felt good that I finally got a chance, that my name was in the newsletter for a lawyer visit, because that's like, wow, you know, I mean, like everybody come telling me, I didn't know, wow, a lawyer's visit. And that made me feel real good. And it made other guys feel good to see my name on that. I'm gonna share this real quick, that when I was released, well, the day that they called me to leave, I didn't expect I was leaving. They was on the phone the day before telling me I might leave tomorrow. But I was woken up by an officer hollering my name to pack my stuff. And when I heard it, I was sleeping real hard, because I just went to sleep an hour before, stayed up all night trying to finish stuff but I didn't believe it. You know, when I heard applause, and I'm like, I gotta be dreaming, because I know I just heard my name, now I hear applause. And I'm seeing the same thing, guys in white and stuff, and I realized that that was my name and these guys applauding for me. Then I'm finna go home. And that was weird, because I've been in that dorm 7 years and seen a number of guys, you know, get paroled or go to, I've never seen nobody applaud for anybody. And that made me feel good, real good, because I don't know, I felt like I made a breakthrough, because I was a barber. I talked to a lot of guys. I'm always trying to share information, trying to get them, hey, go this route, this is what I'm doing, do this. I'm always encouraging. And so there's no one in that dorm that I probably hadn't said something positive to or try to encourage. And even now, these guys are surprised, because they know this is what I do. I just like helping people. But that was a big day for me. And even though they told me that, and I was standing in the hall for a couple of hours, I was still fearful of not getting out that place, because I've seen so many guys die in that place. I've seen guys like laying up in the infirmary. I remember one day I went to the hospital for something, and I see this like gurney-like thing, and I see the sheet, and I see the guy's foot, and I see like a tag on his toe, and I'm like, tag on the toe, and it hit me, man, this guy dead. And I'm like, wow, because I never really just seen, I done seen guys get stabbed up, but I hadn't seen the body with the toe tag. And I'm like, God, man, I hope that'll never be me. Because that's my biggest fear was like dying in prison. And I'm not just talking about dying from old age, but dying from getting stabbed in the back of the neck, because you've got a lot of mental patients in prison. Not just a lot of guys full of anger, but you've got a lot of mental patients in prison, because there's nowhere else to put them. They pile them up in there. And these outpatients that's in the dorms with us, they might just act out. And then you got guys that owe money, want to go to lockup, so let me run and stab this guy and go to lockup. It's so many things going on in that it's surprising to me and other guys I know that we were able to find a peace to just really just evaluate ourselves, just really just study, just learn. And it's hard for me to say that I hate the time I did. It's hard for me to say that I hate the people that were involved in sentencing me. I can't really say that, because I don't feel no hatred towards them, because I accept my blame. But the one thing that I would never agree with, even though people have told me that maybe it's been God's will, but I didn't deserve to do no 37 years. That was too much time for me. But I'm happy I'm here, and I'm taking advantage, and of every opportunity that's given to me. Everything that comes to me that's constructive, that I can help, I'm willing to do. It's getting to the point that I don't have the time to do it because now I have a family. My girl is sitting there with the kids. I have stepkids now, and I've got to find time for them. And but life is beautiful. I mean, right now I don't have no complaints. No complaints. I just wish I could get more guys out here with me so we can be like a team going different places trying to open your eyes to what's really going on in Alabama with this prison system, you know?
I'm not sure what I can add to that, so we will take questions in just a minute, but I actually wanted to jump into a question that was provided earlier because that segues into another topic. And the question was for Ron, after being in prison so long and the world changing around you, what was it like when you got out? Was it hard to adapt? How long did it take? So be thinking about that. I have to tell one little story about Ron's first night out. So he had a house that our friends at the Alumni Association, the Offender Alumni Association had found for him. And so we knew he had a safe place to stay. But the day after his release, or a couple days later, I was checking in with him. How's it going? What have you been doing? And he told me a story about how he decided he needed a razor at 3 in the morning. And so he just wandered across the road to a convenience store on a busy highway at 3 in the morning. And I was just so upset. Like, how could we have let that happen? There are so many things that could have gone wrong with this man who's been in prison 37 years, wandering around in Birmingham at 3 in the morning. So, you know, we learn as we go that obviously Ron is a smart, capable guy and deserved all the freedom. But we also know that he needed resources and support and some guidance. And so Alex spent a lot of time with him in those early days. And I would love for y'all to talk a little bit about that. But Ron, if you just want to respond a little bit.
Allow me to defend myself on that 3 o'clock morning thing.
There is no defense.
I got to defend myself.
No defense.
Listen, when you've done 37 years in prison and you're not allowed to just walk out the door because it's probably locked or because somebody's going to tell you can't go. When I'm out. I mean, there's a door here that I can walk out when I want. That was like, God, that felt good to like, hey, I'm going to go to the store. Just walk out that door, you know. Because it would have been real bad for me to say, hey, I want to go to the store, but I'm scared to go out the door, you know. Well, I mean, I'm like you say, risk. I went out that door, and I swear it felt good to be able to walk around at night and see the stars because you can go a lot of years in prison and don't see the sky, don't see a star. When I moved on the south side, we were allowed to stay out kind of at night. And I'm always found myself out there trying to find the little dipper and the big dipper because that's the only one stars I know. And I used to always want to find them because I went so long with not being able to look at the stars. And so, yes, they're right, it's dangerous out there. But at that time, I just wanted to walk out the door and just go somewhere.
Can you share some other stories of the first few months you got out and some of the really breathtaking experiences you had?
Okay. One of the things that seemed like everybody was waiting on, and which everybody seems to do when they get out of prison, especially a long time, is break down and cry. You know, when you come out like, okay, there it goes, that pain, you know. But I don't know, I was kind of cool and nonchalant with it. I was kind of holding it in.
You were trying to be cool.
Trying to be. I want nobody to see me cry and all that. But I happened to be, I was some people doing a filming thing, but I was standing under this tree, or by this car, standing by the tree, and I heard this sound, this crackling sound. I'm like, hell the hell. And I look up, it's the leaves in the tree. And I realized that, man, I hadn't heard that sound in so long. And I'm looking at these trees, I'm like, oh man, I missed that. And then I started looking at the leaves and how the wind, it's just the sound, I'm like, man. And I ain't gonna tell you how a squirrel was tripping me out, but it's like, you know, in prison, we don't have trees, all right? In prisons, you don't really have hills. I was like, for me to be able to hear that, it brought back years of stuff that I just blanked out of the free world. And so, but I didn't break down then, but I was talking to Connie Kohler later on that night, and I was telling her about the tree. And in the process of telling her, I just broke down. And I'm like, I got to call you back. Yeah. And Carla, and Connie on the end, she said, yeah, I know. I said, you God. But you'll be surprised, like I had to learn, we went to Golden Corral, and I'm walking to get my food, and I kept tripping. Kept tripping, and I realized, whoa. And I looked down, I'm like, my shoes, I said, it's the rug. I had to relearn how to walk on a rug. I had to relearn how to just walk on surfaces that go up and down because everything is flat. You don't have rugs in prison, you just got cement. It's so many things I had to relearn. Another example, when I first went to and saw a salesperson, I think it was a gym, I went and got a phone. And this salesperson, she was so nice to me. I mean, she was like, I hit Jim, I'm like, man, she's nice. She was just so nice. I'm like, God, I might be falling in love, she was so nice. But then I realized that the next salesperson, the next week, the next, and like all of them, I come to realize that they're just doing their job. It's just that I spent so many years with people weren't being nice to me. Well, officers, I mean, you get these stern looks all the time. When you ask somebody something or also something, they want to get smart with you. And most of the staff walk around like if you speak, it's like you from a third. Now, you're supposed to, I'm not all of them, but you get accustomed to people treating you like you dirt. And for me to come out, and this saleswoman, God, she was nice to me. You know, I mean, seriously.
And he's not the only one. This is all of our clients. They all think they're going to get married to the first customer service representative they deal with. So
it took me a minute to realize it. You know, one of the other clients, the lady gave me the sales slip, and she put a name on it because she wanted to do a survey on how nice the service was. He get back and come in, she gave me a you know, she was nice. I didn't want to break up, but I had to say, hey, I think it's a possibility, man, that she just wants you to do a survey or a job and she's just giving you a name. But you might come back and talk to her, but it's a possibility. But it's just understand that when you're living in that type of environment for so long, it chips away at you. It chips away at how you see yourself, your worth, your self-esteem. It chips away. And it takes people like these, or people like maybe you, to bring it back out of us. If a person come out of prison behaving like an animal, I can guarantee he was an animal when he went in. I could have came out of prison a whole lot different, a whole lot different. And I can tell you, I know guys in prison, I don't want to stay in the same country that my people, because they've been beaten down and got so much hatred in them and so much that, but there's so many guys in there that, man, that it's guys in there that broke down in tears when they saw me out or saw me talking somewhere. I was lucky enough to go to a football game in Atlanta 3 days after I was out, and they in my dorm happened to see it. And I didn't find out about it when I called and talked to guys. It's the way these guys were just sounding, the way I love accepting calls from guys in prison, because I can give them encouragement. It's some guys that call me that are in there with capital cases, murder cases, but it's really not much I can tell them, but I can share with them what I'm doing. That's the best I can do, is share with them and let them know about things that my organization and what other people are trying to do. I had to let these guys, even when I went to Montgomery and talked before a committee, it shocked me because I was shocked that there was actually people in Montgomery that was trying to make a change. Because in prison, we look at Montgomery as where all the demons and devils are. Because the only thing they want to do is lock you up and throw away the key. We didn't trust nobody in Montgomery. All they did was just tell lies. All they did was just make bills to give us the impression that they're going to do something by the laws to let us go. And then it's always, you know, it never happens. But being up there and sitting there and listening and looking at these, because it's this term we use, game, recognize game. And I got to the point where most times I can really just listen to a person, what they're saying, and really just be able to say if they're for real or not. And I'm listening to these people, I'm like, man. And I had to tell a reporter that one of the main things I was impressed about, there are actual people in Montgomery that's trying to make a change. And so I had to tell these guys that. And any other person, but they believe me. Because I'm telling you, I'm talking to these people are trying to help. So don't give up. Because this guy's not giving up by putting that spike in their arm. Guys running around with sensitive, just doing crazy stuff, this flocker thing, everything. Guys are, we call, there's a number of types of suicides, but there's this other type, this mild suicide type thing where I want to make you kill me. It's this term they use a lot when guys get mad, hey, want to fight, I want to make you kill me. And you got to understand that the guy's serious. I'm gonna make you do it because I can't do it myself. I don't have the nerve. I don't have the guts. You know, I can't do it myself, but I'm tired of this, so I'm gonna make you do it. I'm gonna come at you with a knife and because I'm tired. This goes on so long. It goes on a lot. And I don't wanna go into horrors, but
Can I jump in first?
jump in, please,
Yes.
because I'm getting to the horror part.
No.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Ron is really getting at that I want to emphasize, because if you all have turned out on a night like this, or you're listening at your homes, you probably care deeply about these issues and think, what can I do? How can I plug in? And I truly believe that we are at a moment right now where, because the federal government is suing the state over prison conditions are getting worse. The Department of Justice, the federal government, is not going away. They take this very seriously, and the state is not addressing the violence. And a lot of those people in Montgomery, the legislators, people in the governor's office, they know that they are in trouble and that the people of Alabama are not going to stand for this. But they really need to hear from you. We always encourage people to contact your legislator, contact the governor's office. And the message is really pretty simple, is that you want sentencing reform, you want fewer incarcerated people and more services in the community, you want the Habitual Offender Act to be repealed. We need to change the culture in this state where things that we all know in our hearts, that more prisons and more punishment is failing us. This state is too poor and will always be too poor to safely house all of the people we try to throw away in prisons. We are the only state that has been sued by the federal government twice over unconstitutional conditions over the entire prison system in 50 years. So we are just going down the same road over and over again, and it's a broken road. So we have lots of reports on Appleseed's website and ways to get involved, to educate yourself, and to contact your lawmakers. So I always have to get that plug in because it won't change unless we demand better. I would love to, I hope we have some time to take a few questions. I've jumped into one on reentry, but would love to hear from y'all. Thoughts, questions? Okay. Well, I have a few more that some of the students provided, so I will just go through those. First question, what do you think about Alabama's habitual felony offender laws and how does it affect people? Y'all can probably guess how we feel about that law. What is so harmful about the habitual felony offender law is up until just a few years ago, it was mandatory for a judge to sentence someone to life without parole. That is death in prison, never getting out, if you had one Class A felony, which could be a convenience store robbery with no physical injury. It could be a burglary where no one was injured. If you have 3 priors, and like Ron, those priors can be minor things, drug possession, forgery, some theft of a phone. And so we have literally hundreds of people still in prison under these life without parole sentences for things that happened decades ago. And they've found purpose and they've turned their lives around, but there's no way for them to get out. So those laws have been shown to be racially motivated. They're applied with enormous racial bias. 75% of the people serving those death in prison sentences where robbery was the most serious offense are Black people. And the powers that be at the time knew exactly what they were doing. And so there's an awakening that those 3 strikes laws, as they're sometimes called, are ineffective and expensive. And there's a movement across the country called Second Chance or Second Look Opportunities that is really gaining momentum. And Appleseed is the primary organization in the state that's working on those Second Chance laws. It is, again, the habitual offender law. And let me just recommend Beth Shelburne, who we've talked about a number of times tonight. She has written a piece called Vending Machine Justice. It was published in an online publication called The Daily Beast, and it's the best reporting on the harm of the Habitual Felony Offender Act. So for much more detailed, really compelling information, check out Beth's piece.
Also, Castaways. That's another piece that she had done that's very interesting. A lot of information.
Okay, I think we're all having a hard time. I heard Anthony Ray Hinton. No, it's okay. The sun does shine.
There was a term that the judge sentenced override. Was what he used. I'd always heard overruled kind of thing in courtroom, but he used override, which changed the verdict basically of what the jury had decided. Is that right?
Yes.
Is Alabama still have that as a legal option?
That is a great question. So this is in death penalty cases. And for years... Yes. Does Alabama still have judge override in death penalty cases where judges can impose death even if the jury has recommended life? So in death penalty cases, there's a guilt phase verdict where the jury decides if someone is guilty of capital murder, and then there's a second phase where you hear evidence about what the sentence should be. And the options are either life without parole or the death penalty. Well, Alabama's judges are elected, and it's very political. And so what all the data collected over about 30 years of capital litigation showed that even when juries would look at all the evidence and say, we recommend life without parole, we don't want this person to be killed, judges would often step in and say, I'm not listening to the jury, I'm going to impose death. And that's what happened in Mr. Hinton's case and dozens of other Alabama death penalty cases. It's because of the politics of punishment. So for many years we had that, and that ended, thankfully, in 2017. The legislature came in and ended judge override and said whatever the jury votes is what stands. And since then, death sentences in Alabama are at an all-time low. Used to be over 20 death sentences annually. Now we're at about 2 or 3. Still too many. We need to get rid of the death penalty altogether, but we're really chipping away at new death sentences because of changes in laws. And so when I talk about policy reform and how we need to fix things at the legislature, that's a really great example of how you fix a bad law and you save lives. Other questions? No, you are
Great question.
right on point. I know exactly what you're talking about. How can we possibly build new prisons and perpetuate this broken system with money that's supposed to be COVID relief money to help this state? And Alabama is the only state in the country that has taken some of their American Rescue Act funds and said, our priority is 2 new mega prisons. And so 400 billion of our, I want to say it's about 1.2 billion total we'll be getting from the federal government, has been devoted to 2 new prisons. Those prisons will actually cost $1.3 billion. So enormous amount of money for a poor state like Alabama, but that's what the legislature voted to do in their special session. Now, I can't give details, but there are people across this state and activist groups, investor groups across the country that are really trying to interrupt that deal and keep those prisons from being bought and that COVID money from being spent that way. So let's maintain hope that maybe we will win. Unfortunately, there was a rule that the U.S. Treasury issued that said states can use this COVID relief money to replace lost revenue. And that's what our legislature said. That lost revenue would have been spent on these prisons, and so they're going to use the money that way. But what we're going to be working on is, even if it is spent on the prisons, we're hoping some of that COVID money can actually be spent on reentry programs. Alabama provides no funding for reentry housing. You get out of these horrific, traumatizing prisons, and you're basically on your own unless you have family support. So we want some of that ARPA money to be spent on reentry, to be spent on drug court and diversion and community services that will keep people out of these unconstitutional prisons.
But isn't it also the case that a lot of families just kind of
probably happens, probably every scenario you can imagine, but we certainly are in touch with a lot of families who are desperate for their loved ones to come home. Yeah, anybody else? Somebody in the back, I think, had a question.
Carter?
What was the question?
What would it look like if the DOJ won the lawsuit? Great question.
Oh,
Carla.
I don't know. We hope and pray for that. In the church, we can say we're praying. There's a lot of different possibilities. There's something called federal receivership, where experts in prisons are brought in, and a federal judge or a committee of experts kind of oversees things for a while and requires the state to do certain things in order for that receivership to end. That happened in the 1970s when there was a similar case called Pugh v. Locke. The state spent 13 years under a federal receivership. It was incredibly expensive. As a result, we built about 8 new prisons. We see how well that strategy went. But there is a report on our website that envisions and talks about some of this. So if you'll check out our website, and there's some reports in the back of the room that talk about this. I wish I could tell you, because people talk about federal takeover, but you know, there's just lots of different ways that could happen. And I mean, the outcome, I think, ultimately would be safer prisons with fewer incarcerated people and more services. Particularly with mental health. There's a whole separate lawsuit over the unconstitutional mental health care in the prisons, and likely there will be more federal intervention in that lawsuit as well.
Can I speak on the conditions on the prisons as I was in there?
Of course.
I just want to point something out, because you're talking this new. I'm thinking, for years, the dorm I lived in, like I said, I was in there like 7 years, but I can go on other dorms, other places, but. There's these boxes. Like I said, it's like 126 guys, and it's just little walls separating me from this guy. When COVID came through, it was like a horror, because you got 4 heads, a head here, a guy here, and one here. So if they cough, it just goes, because it's just a board separating us. But the roaches and the mice are running rapid. It's like I was a night monitor, and I could be sitting up at night, and I see little mouse just running up and down the aisle playing and stuff. We set traps and everything. Roaches, they just embedded into the boxes. I can go in my box and clean it all out, spread and everything, and crack the seals and all, close the door, but it's always going to be a roach going to get up there and set up nests again. So it's something you got to regularly do to try to control the roaches. You can move your box. It might be a rat nest behind your box. I'm talking about, and you can't blame the inmates or the guys, because they don't really give us much to really just clean with. And they're not going to give us any kind of poison or anything to kill the rats. And then it was this company used to come in, and when they come and spray the dorm, they would just spray around the wall. But you got 162 boxes right here, and they won't come and spray them. The excuse they're using is that somebody might put a piece of paper and get this stuff and try to smoke it or something. That's what's a crazy excuse, because you can like have everybody move out the dorm, do your thing, but like I had to talk to someone that came through there from Montgomery and explain to them what they was doing and how the roaches just took over. Next month, I guess he wouldn't have said something, because then they came in and they sprayed around the boxes. They did it twice, and then they stopped doing that, spraying around the boxes. The guys in prison, and y'all forgive me when I like use terms like we, like I'm still there, because in my mind, when I think about them, it's like I left so many guys there, and a part of me is still there because I can't forget what I left. So, but it was nothing we can do. We would complain about it, send letters, all that. There's nothing we can do. The only thing that was really like saving us, helping us from the gopher rat population was a lot of cats there at one time. And we would feed them and stuff, and those cats were amazing about, you know, catching rats and stuff. But the new warden came there and didn't like the fact that we had cats, and having to catch all the cats and take them out, and then the rats just took over again. I'm talking about, we can be in the kitchen, the dining hall. I see a mouse just coming out the hole, And it gets to the point to where at first it may horrify you, just hearing about mice and stuff, but it gets to the point where you just used to seeing them. You're just used to seeing them. Another horrible thing I want to mention, since I brought that up about being used to seeing things, the violence go on so much in there that you get used to it. And I hate to say that it becomes an inconvenience, because once I was sitting at a table, I'll mention this, I was sitting at a table eating. I can tell you other horror stories. I was sitting at a table eating, a guy come behind, the guy stabbed me in the neck, blood shot out on my food and on my clothes. I knew the guy that did the stab, I knew the guy that got stabbed. But to be honest with you, I got upset because the blood got in my food. It was an inconvenience. The guy that got stabbed, I've seen so many guys get stabbed, I've seen so many guys get in fights, it's like common. My main thing was to make sure I wasn't the guy getting stabbed. Make sure I'm the one getting stumped out. And it's a blessing. I mean, it's like a blessing. God was looking the whole way, because I had never been in one fight in prison. That was a basketball thing, macho thing. But I've never been in a fight. I never owned a knife, because I just didn't feel I had to do that. I had to go in prison really at the beginning crazy. I had to swing on the first person that was looking at me crazy. It was what you had to do, because I went in young and I was looked half decent, But I had to swing on the guy. And I regret it, because I come to find out that the guy was looking at me because we went to school together. And man, I regretted that, But I had to pull back. But just know this: that place is not a happy place. And know this, that they need your help, because right now they're under the impression that you don't care. And for a person to be in that situation and think that nobody cares, think what they're going to do with themselves. I mean, just imagine it.
And when I hear these stories, it just is all the more shocking that we expect people to come out of the situations that Ron just described and just sort of figure it out, find a place to live, get your ID, get a job, not get into any more trouble without any services from the state. We set people up for failure because we invest in these buildings, in these cages, in this broken system, and we don't invest in people when they get out. Do we have any more time? Do we have more time? I forgot to put my watch on. It's 7:35. Oh, 7:35. Oh no, I am over time. Okay. Any more questions? All right. Our website is alabamaappleseed.org. We're on all the social medias and really easy to find. We have an office in Office Park and then down in Montgomery. Would love for y'all to spread the word about our work, to educate yourself about these issues based on our website, to invite Ron to speak at another group. He's pretty good at it. Thank you so much for your time and attention tonight. It was really lovely to be here with you.
And for those of you who are YouthServe and connected to YouthServe, and for those of you who aren't, we will also post the website information. We'll post the articles from Beth Shelburne for you to review. It's important to educate yourself if you are to be a good and productive citizen. That is on your shoulders. It's your responsibility. So we'll provide those things for you, but it is your job to read them. So please stay involved and stay educated, and stay close to YouthServe if you're young people who are looking to get involved in the community and to get further involved in civic engagements and talk about civic challenges like the ones that we talked about tonight. So I hope you will all continue to stay involved, and thank you so much for coming out tonight when I know it's scary, but we appreciate it, and I think they did a wonderful job, so another.